broader point is that Bill O'Reilly will not lose his job.
Nope.
And the question is, will the metaphor hold? In other words, will those people who have said, look, Fox News is a news outlet, because look, NBC fires essentially, I mean, it's a 6-month suspension, but we all know the guy's not coming back, Brian Williams, for doing this exact thing, maybe to a lesser degree. Maybe there's more stuff we don't know. But at this point, I would imagine there would be reporters out there looking for it. NBC basically fires this guy because even though they're not a full-time news station, just because this guy is anchoring their news show and he has to have credibility, okay? Now, putting aside the arguments of like the problems with the media anyways, at least that is the game, the way the game is played. For us to maintain our credibility as a news organization, we need to get rid of this guy because he's fabricated stories about himself. When Fox does not do that, they will, not pay a price with the millions that watch them. If anything, I bet you his ratings go up. B, the question is, will the rest of the media, in the way that, the sort of Republican base is now sort of put aside and essentially you live in your own little universe, you will control this territory, be it House seats or, whatever, 2.5 million people watching every night. You'll control this territory, but we're just not going to allow you to infect us anymore. The question is, will the rest of the media finally say what many of us have been saying, is that they're not a news organization? That you
never have been. News is sort of a...
These are not your colleagues. You now have to say, like, they're entertainment. Like, it doesn't even make sense to compare the ratings of, say, MSNBC and Fox, because that would be like comparing the ratings of MSNBC with TNT.
Right. There is, and I'm glad you're saying that, because that's exactly it here. Because when I started seeing some friends, on the left who were like, we got to push this and get him fired, and, in a nice and a respectful way, I just sort of said, you can't. I mean, there's the whole everything. The point of Brian Williams, whose job was dependent upon him still having credibility as an objective arbiter of the news, that was lost when he lied. With what O'Reilly's done, O'Reilly gets people to watch him not for that reason, but because he's the biggest jackass in the room, because he is a bully, because he does insult people on the left constantly and say that everything's a left-wing conspiracy against him and all of that, and it sells because they're looking for a very small sliver, it's cable, of the audience that is passionate, and even a couple million people in this country is not a huge number of people, but that doesn't matter. That's all they need to get to be a top-rated cable show, or at least cable news show. And they throw reporters. I'm not saying there aren't any real reporters there. I've actually often thought that Shepard Smith can do a pretty good job. But the reporters who are in there, and he's, by the way, the only one that was there before Roger Ailes got there, which is important to say. But even if there's others like him there, a few others, they're there to give it the appearance of it being a news station. There are reporters there who are part of the camouflage. But overall, it's a right-wing propaganda station, which nobody so much as Roger Ailes himself, 20 years earlier than they created it or more, said he wanted to create something like that called, I think it was right-wing news, or I don't remember what the hell they were calling it back then. When Nixon was being attacked, he saw that Nixon couldn't be defended because they didn't have outlets that could start questioning truth and make it a he said, she said thing, which is exactly what they would have done with Watergate, and Nixon probably never would have had to leave. And so that was their goal, was to create a sort of, this kind of ecosystem where they could respond and there was no actual truth. And Fox has done that very successfully when it comes to, their corporate guys who need that from them, Exxon and others when it comes to climate change, their religious zealot supporters when it comes to evolution and things like that. And they've been able to do that, but they've done that very much with the news itself there. And that being that Roger Ailes comes from the exact same background, as O'Reilly, which, by the way, is the exact same background as another star of the past 2 weeks, Rudy Giuliani, which are sort of these angry, sort of working-class white guys, at least they came from that background. They're all rich as hell now, who resent everything, blame everyone for their own problems, and then somewhere along the way realize that the same sort of notions they have about the way the world works, the same resentments they have, all the people who are watching them and who are fans of them have. And they've created an entire media property, and in Giuliani's case, his own sort of profile around attracting people to this exact phenomenon that they know works because it works in their own minds. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, all O'Reilly can do is gain an audience with this. I mean, it's gone up right now. Now, granted, whenever there's controversy, numbers go up. My guess is they'll come back down close to his normal numbers, but they're not going to go below his normal numbers because none of the people who love him and watch him have ever watched him to get the truth. So what the hell would change now? And Roger Ailes has never wanted the truth, so why would he care? I mean, the Fox News Network itself has always behaved like a political campaign. They've never been embarrassed by their actions, whatever. They have a PR organization there within Fox that's like any PR unit within a political campaign. Anybody questions them, they attack them and call them names. They don't apologize.
The real question is going to be, and I don't know where we will have an example of of how this. I don't know where we'll have an opportunity for this to manifest it. But, I mean, recall in the early days of the Obama administration, in the press pool, I think Fox was either not given a seat or put in the way back or something.
Right.
And other media outlets complained, like, hey, this is not right. We have to stick up for our fellow journalists. Well, I mean, I think, I don't know when the next opportunity for them to do this will be, but it'll be telling at that point as to whether or not really, I mean, can you really defend this outlet as a fellow journalistic enterprise if they won't even play that game about we don't have an anchor who's going to lie about the time that he was shot at or got concrete hailed on him or whatever you know what I mean? Like that's really going to be the question.
No, and then you need to go beyond that too. And I think Rachel Maddow, I saw a segment, she touched a little bit on this, but this is such an important part of it too, is not just is it not a news outlet in supporting a guy who clearly now we've got 4 different occasions from nuns in El Salvador, pardon me, to what happened now, we're talking about Los Angeles, to what happened in the Falklands and what happened with the JFK, the suicide or so-called suicide of this man who knew some stuff about the assassination apparently. Well, we've got these 4 different episodes where this guy has done this, and so we know that part of the equation, but the second part is how Fox has reacted to this and how O'Reilly's reacted, which is not only to call David Corn names and say he's a liar and he's a gutter snipe and the kinds of things that most people don't think it's appropriate for people calling themselves reporters of any sort to be engaging in with other reporters, but how he's literally used violent language of the sort you'd expect to come from Sarah Palin of the Tea Party in saying that we're going to put, he's like, I want to see David Corn put in the kill zone. Now, I mean, what the hell does that say to every lunatic out there watching Fox? He's refused to apologize for that. Fox has refused to apologize for that, and he also threatened a female reporter in his usual sexist Andrea Macris kind of way he treats women, telling her that he was going to come after her. I mean, real news stations can't behave like that, or they're not real news stations. It's pretty simple.
Indeed.
And so in that way, too, I've just never understood. I get it why some Democrats have felt they need to go on there because there's a big audience and defend things that are sort of, that they take and they completely sort of put in one end. It comes out of the other. It looks nothing like what anybody on the left had actually said, the way they smear people and everything. But the one thing I have never understood is why the Obama administration has ever felt the need to give them an ounce of credibility. I don't know why they've ever called on one of their people in a press conference. I don't know why he did that interview before the Super Bowl or whatever it was a few years ago with O'Reilly, why they've ever sent him or Biden on any Fox property. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if they were increasing the danger of my daily job by telling people that I wasn't a real American, that I was coming for their guns, and all the other things they've said to probably, incite riot almost against the President of the United States, to pander to their racist base, to do everything else, I've never understood why the Obama people didn't just say, you know what, as long as you carry that stuff on, you can be conservatives, you can criticize my policies, but as long as you carry that kind of stuff on, I will not appear on your network. Nobody from my administration will appear on your network. We will not answer your questions. We will have absolutely nothing to do with you. I've never understood why he wouldn't do that, why they wouldn't do that. They gain nothing from his conversations with them and from giving them what they want, which is even the slightest form of access.